This game is a masterpiece. That's what thousands of reviewers on Steam kept saying over and over about The Outer Wilds. It was a game so good that the best experience was to go in blind, not knowing anything about it. Usually I'm skeptical about doing that with a game, but the amount of people repeating the same thing was compelling enough to make an exception. So I bought the game, played it, finished it, and I don't think I agree with these reviews. Let me start from the beginning and explain. Like the title of this video says, I really wanted to like this game. I almost fell in love in the first 15 to 20 minutes, exploring the village on the first planet. The atmosphere, the art style, the music just made everything feel so peaceful, and the gameplay mechanics in this first part were actually pretty good. So usually when I play a game for the first time, I rarely stick around the starting area, because I want to just jump right into the action of everything. But this game is presented so well that I was so compelled to stop and actually take my time with things in the beginning. I'm telling you all of this because I need you to know that I did start off with a good opinion of this game, and because of this, I kept trying to convince myself that I still liked it in the later stages. But eventually there came a point near the end of the game that I really just had to accept the facts that I just didn't like this game. It's not an objectively bad game by any means, but I just don't understand how so many people could call this the best game they've ever played. So let me take you on a journey of how I felt playing this game, as I went from falling in love to wanting to quit almost halfway through. This was without a doubt the best part of the game. And it's because this is where it gets to show how much wonder and creativity there is here. At first, it's all about exploring the new worlds and figuring out the different rules for each one. Whether it's giant tornadoes that send you flying into space, or watching out for meteoroids that break the ground and send it falling into a black hole in the middle of a planet. No one planet is anywhere near the same as another. Of course, this is also where you're first introduced to the time loop mechanic. Every 22 minutes, or until you die, whichever comes first, you're reset back to the starting area. The great thing about this is how the time loop is combined with the different mechanics of other worlds. The experience goes from discovering a new planet and its unique features to learning how to exploit said features, and at what exact time to do specific things. For example, if you know a certain planet has this feature of being buried in sand as time goes on, you may figure out which areas you can only access in the beginning of the loop, as well as areas you can only access when the planet is almost fully covered in sand. It's an incredible way to make players feel like their exploration is rewarded when they discover the tricks and trades of said planet. However, this also ends up being the crutch that eventually leads to boredom. I know I didn't address the story all that much in the first section, and that's mainly because I felt like I kind of put it on the back burner in favor of exploration and exploitation of the different worlds. How this game works in terms of story is you're tasked with uncovering different answers to different rumors throughout the solar system. Now in the first 5 hours you can pretty much do this almost all the time. It almost became like a bonus of your exploration. It's in the second 5 hours where I think this starts to become more of the main focus. Why is that? Well, it's because the novelty and mystery of the different planets starts to wear off. It's likely by now that you've visited all the planets at least one time, with the exception of maybe one, but that's likely because you haven't found it yet. So with that being the case, the main thing keeping you interested at this point is the story and the mystery surrounding it. And as far as space adventure stories go, it's not bad. Some people have said it's groundbreaking or even life-changing. I don't think I would go that far, but I will say I enjoyed it, at least looking back on it after completing it all. While I was playing the game, however, is a different story. This all comes down to how the story is presented to the player. To start off, there's a lot of story and rumors to discover. On the surface, this might seem good, but what it actually does is kind of make things feel overwhelming, which then leads to being boring. But by this time, I haven't gotten bored of the story just yet. So let's loop back to the gameplay. I mentioned earlier that the exploration of planets and discovering their unique rules ended up being boring. Why? Because, other than the novelty already wearing off, the only other thing you can do with this knowledge is use it to discover the story. And the reason this becomes boring is because about 9 out of 10 times you need to discover something for the story, there's usually only one way to go about it. You can't really use your knowledge of the planets to discover the secrets however you want. Say there's a building I want to go inside, but by the time I arrive, the door's been buried in sand. I can't just wait a few minutes for the sand to rise even higher to try and get through a window or something like that. Mostly it just means I have to start the loop over and wait for the opportunity again. It's fun to experiment, sure, but with how time sensitive a lot of these riddles are, it starts to feel like a drag. The unique features of each planet that once fascinated you start to become almost an annoyance at times. I think what really gets me the most is how the answer to a lot of these rumors are spread out amongst the few different planets. Say there's a building locked off to the player on one planet. More than likely, the knowledge of how to get inside will be on a completely different planet. There's also a chance that this answer is in another hard-to-reach area, which means you have to figure out how to get inside that, and even if you manage to crack that code and find the answers you're looking for, by the time you go back to the original planet, there's a chance that your window of opportunity is gone, you need to start your time loop all over again while waiting for your specific moment. If the first 5 hours of this game feels like a larger-than-life space exploration, then the second 5 hours feel like a wild goose chase while being lit on fire. Honestly, this wouldn't all be so bad if I knew exactly when events could happen. See, there is a way to skip time in this game. As soon as you reset, you can rest in the beginning area for however long you wish. The problem is, there's no clock or indicator of when things are gonna happen. I wish you had like a device that acted similar to the one you had on your ship. The one that tells you about all the rumors you've discovered and solved. This device could be carried around at all times, it would tell you about the rumors and answers you've discovered, and it would give a countdown to when events that you've previously witnessed or discovered the answers to will occur. This would make experimenting go a lot quicker and fix, honestly, a lot of my issues with the game I've had in these second 5 hours. The same can't be said for the final 5 hours though. So, to recap, the first third of this game, I'm having fun with all parts. The second third, I'm interested in the story but bored of the gameplay. But by now, I'm just bored all around. A lot of the gameplay stopped interesting me a while ago, and at times annoyed me, while the story is now starting to feel like it's dragging with the overwhelming amount of wall scrolls and goose chases I've been on. It's by this point I almost want to quit, but the only thing keeping me around is my curiosity for seeing how the hell this is all going to end. And that's... well... we'll talk about that later. By now I've discovered most of the rumors and a lot of the answers. The only things that are left are a few difficult riddles to solve and more than a few attempts at trying to pass through a weird stealth section that almost feels out of place for this game. I know that the games aren't exactly one-to-one, but by this time in my playthrough, I couldn't help but start to compare this game to Subnautica. For those who haven't played it, it's somewhat similar in that it deals with exploring an alien planet that was dominated by an ancient alien species and uncovering a mystery that plagued the entire planet. But I was so much more interested in Subnautica than I ever was with the Outer Wilds. Why? 2 reasons. The first being, I never felt punished for exploring. It's kind of weird to me that the Outer Wilds presents itself as an exploration game, but if you explore too long or take your time in one area, you'll end up resetting and having to spend a chunk of time just to get back to where you were. I felt like there was a lot less time to stop and take in all the details, because I only had so much time each loop, so I needed to get as much information in as possible. Whereas in Subnautica, I can search every nook, every cranny, every cave and creep vine can be explored to your heart's desires. Sure, there's a threat of not having enough oxygen, but more than likely you can find ways to bypass this problem. Which leads me to my second point. In Subnautica, I had things to do outside of the story. When it comes to big open world games like these, there's bound to be some downtime. Time where the story isn't moving as fast as you would want it to. So when that happens, it's good to have something else for the player to do. Either give them a break from said story like building or upgrading a base, or give them the ability to upgrade skills or craft and obtain certain items that allow them to progress the game easier. In Subnautica, I can craft submarines, big and small, mech suits, moon pools, nuclear reactors, knives, armor, gravity guns, scanning rooms, and so much more. It allows me to interact with the world in my own unique way, because I have to gather the materials to make all these things. And more than likely, everyone's experience will be different when it comes to this stuff. Yeah, we all experience the story stuff kinda the same, but while we both might have to collect diamonds at one point, you may have had an experience narrowly escaping a warper trying to teleport you out of your submarine, but I might have ended up fighting a giant Reaper Leviathan trying to eat me. The closest thing that the Outer Wilds has to an experience like this is that either people can get lucky and find the answer to a riddle accidentally, or they discover secrets and rumors in a different order than someone else. But at the end of the day, we all experience the same story, just some might get more information than others maybe. I guess my main issue is that in Subnautica, I feel like I'm really exploring an alien world that exists on its own, whereas in the Outer Wilds, I feel like I'm discovering places that have just been waiting for me. I'm not saying this game needs a deep crafting system like Subnautica or dozens of side quests and Easter eggs, But I don't know, maybe just a few things to do. Collecting relics for the museum curator, maybe upgrading just one thing on your spaceship or spacesuit, maybe even getting an item like I talked about earlier that has that built-in clock system for certain events. Just that little bit of something extra for when I'm feeling overwhelmed by the story or bored of the gameplay. Alright, let's wrap this up by talking about the story and its ending. What started off as this interesting mystery traveling across the stars ended up feeling like this long-winded hunt that seemed never-ending, presented to me by the same style of wall scrolls. I went from reading everything aloud to skimming in my head and checking my ship's computer for important details. And the ending to it all... Look, it's not that I think it's bad. I guess it's just not as good as I was expecting. It's all about something that's been built up over the course of the entire game as this larger-than-life secret. But in the end, it was something that would have happened either way, whether I did anything or not. At least, that's what it felt like. I guess I just felt like my entire journey was cheated. Like it didn't mean anything. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it did mean something. I'm honestly not too sure about it myself, and it seems like this is something the community is split on. So if you have played the game and know the ending, I'd really love to hear your take on it all. I guess to me, the destination just didn't feel worth the journey. This game is a masterpiece. That's what thousands of reviewers on Steam said about The Outer Wilds. And it was something that made me really hesitant about making this video. On the one hand, I don't want to invalidate the experience so many people had playing this game. It seems like an experience that many people treasured. But on the other hand, I just don't think I can sit here and say that overall, this was a good game for me. I couldn't help be curious as to why so many people love this game. So I guess in a way, this video is just one big question as to why? Why did you like this game so much? Even with all the flaws I had pointed out, did they not bother you as much? Did you enjoy the story more than I did? Did the gameplay never get boring for you? Genuinely, I am curious. It's easy to call out the negatives and something objectively bad, but when something is claimed to be a masterpiece, it's hard to call out any criticisms that might be useful for making the next iteration or installment. I've accepted that even my favorite games will have people who hate it more than they like it. I think this just happens to be one where I just can't see the good outweighing the bad for me. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe on the next loop, I'll sing a different tune.